You just described Gandhi's entire family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Gandhi.
No, we love it.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.
10 years ago, Danielle, that we met Dan Harris.
I know, it's crazy.
And he has this book, which I love. It's called 10% Happier.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just be 10% happier, why go for more? Anyway, Dan's story is great. I know you've told your story 1,000 times, but we're going to have to tell it again.
I'm happy to humiliate myself all over again.
Good.
Just for your listening pleasure.
If you fall short, we'll humiliate you for you. Dan, of course, you've seen him on Good Morning America, Nightline. You used to do Nightline as well?
Yeah.
And you were actually doing the news on Good Morning America one morning, and your life changed that day in a frightening but great way.
Well, ultimately great, but yes, I was doing the news and I lost my mind, basically. This was back in 2004. I was anchoring the news updates on Good Morning America, and I was in the middle of reading a whole set of stories off of the teleprompter, and this is super inconvenient. I found that I could not breathe. My heart was racing, my lungs seized up, my palms were sweaty, my thoughts were racing, and the more I noticed that my body was in mutiny mode, the more my mind was freaking out, and that created a vicious cycle. And right in the middle of this, I realized I had to quit and toss it back to the main hosts of the show, who were Diane Sawyer and Charlie Gibson, and it was totally humiliating.
And it was live on the biggest morning show in America.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're talking about a hit of anxiety, a hit of fright, and then you realize something about yourself that moment and start to discover a part of yourself. I need to figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, in the moment I realized I had a panic attack. I lied to everybody because I didn't want to admit that. And then I went to a psychiatrist and I learned something even more embarrassing, which was what caused the panic attack. I had spent a lot of time after 9/11 as a very ambitious young correspondent in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, basically several years as a war correspondent. And I had come home from many of these experiences and gotten depressed. And I found there was a really convenient fix for this, cocaine. And turns out this is a phenomenally stupid idea.
It smells so good, though.
Yeah, there are so many benefits in the moment. So, yeah, I'm just editing myself so I don't get canceled. Yeah, so cocaine. And I was not high when I was on the air. But when I went to this psychiatrist, he asked me a bunch of questions to try to figure out, why did you lose your mind on television? And one of the questions was, do you do drugs? And I kind of sheepishly said yes. And I don't know if you've ever been to a shrink, but he kind of leaned back in his chair and gave me a look that communicated the following sentiment: okay, a-hole, mystery solved. And I was like, oh, man, okay. So the big change I made right there was I quit doing drugs and I started seeing this shrink once or twice a week for 10 years.
Wow.
10 years.
But then meditation came into your world.
Then I became a useless hippie.
No. Keep in mind, if you watch network TV, network news, you know a lot of their journalists have assignments, particular assignments, and yours was spirituality and religion.
Yes, so there's this huge anchor man back in the day that Elvis and I will remember, but some of you youngsters, Danielle, you might be right on the bubble, but there was a huge anchor man named Peter Jennings.
Of course.
And Peter was my boss and mentor, and now when I speak to young people, I get this look that I think Gandhi's giving me right now, like, who are you talking about?
No, I know who Peter Jennings is.
Big deal.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he was a huge deal in 30 million homes an evening, and I had grown up watching him, and I was terrified of him and also idolized him. And he took me aside one day and said, you, Dan, are going to start covering faith and spirituality. And I was raised in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, and
so you had neither faith or spirituality.
No, I did have a bar mitzvah, but only for money. So, like, I was not
mazel.
Yeah, it was in a fine tradition.
So in your journeys, you stumbled upon
upon meditation. I started, I had been living with anxiety and stress and depression for most of my life, and going to a therapist was helpful. But then I started reading about the benefits of meditation, that it could help you. I mean, because I always considered meditation for people who like live in a yurt and are really into patchouli and smell like feet and wear little finger symbols.
In
and,
a yurt. Sorry.
You just described Gandhi's entire family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Gandhi.
No, we love it.
But they
We
have
love
like a
it there.
massive yurt.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah,
back,
it's a nice yurt.
back
I
to-
get it.
it's a
That's not what I'm talking
Absolutely.
a yurt mansion.
about. Yeah, exactly. Glamorous yurting. No, so I had a negative opinion of meditation, but then I saw all of this science that shows that I'm not a scientist, just to be clear, but I'm married to one. She's sitting right over there, and I have a lot of respect for science. And the science shows that a little bit of meditation can lower the release of stress hormones in your brain, reduce your blood pressure, rewire key parts of the brain that are associated with self-compassion, associated with a focus, associated with stress. And so then I saw that science and I started doing it, and it made a real difference for me.
You saw it how quickly? The difference.
It took, it's funny with meditation, and I know you've done it, and I'd be curious to hear your story on this. It's not like going to the gym where the feedback is immediate. You're like, your body is saying, this sucks, stop doing this. So something's happening. With meditation, you really have to have some trust that you give it a shot for a couple of weeks, and then you will start to see some changes. Like you start to get a little calmer. You're less emotionally reactive. You notice, like, you have this thought of, I'm about to say something that's going to ruin the next 48 hours of my marriage, or I'm gonna eat this sleeve of Oreos, and instead of just acting on it blindly, you let it come and go.
You let it go.
And that is where the rubber hits the road. It's this ability to not take your thoughts so seriously. That's the win, and it just takes a minute. You got to kind of do it every day or daily-ish for a little while, and then you start to see the benefits. Does that track for you?
Yeah, I started with this, it was meditation for dummies kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it was a little book with not many pages, because I don't like lots of pages in my books. It was either the 7 or the 13-minute meditation. I forget the name of the book. So I went, okay, let me try this garbage, see what happens. And I started doing it every single day. And I started to get it. And I remember maybe a week or two in it, I remember opening my eyes and going, okay, I think I get this now. And it kicked me upside the head. I got it. And I was talking to Danielle about this earlier. She said, I can't do meditation. Dan knows I can't do meditation because I can't get, it's like I'm doing everything I can to get thoughts out of my mind. And I'm like, well, that's meditation.
Yes.
And I gave them this simple, okay, you're standing on a bridge over a creek. You see a leaf coming down the creek. It goes underneath you, and then the leaf just floats away. And that's how you have to treat. This is how I see it anyway. That's how you treat these thoughts in your mind. You acknowledge them and let them go away. And having thoughts about something during meditation doesn't mean you're a failure. It's letting them go means you're doing some right things.
If you learn how to meditate, then you know how. I think a lot of us go through this, where at night you're awake and everything from the day is just in your head, and all your anxieties and all your thoughts. And sometimes with me, it's, that fan really sounds like it's about to fly off the ceiling, like things like that. Like, will that help to calm those moments?
Well, I think there are some people who are unfixable, just to say. And I may be talking to one right now. I don't know.
You're broken, Dan.
Right,
You know what? You know what, Dan?
I was prepared to give this lecture to Skiri, but
He's unfixable.
Here we go.
I'm a lost cause.
You know what? It's just meditation that scares people. They're like, ooh, I don't know what that means. So therefore, does it mean I have to be a Baptist? I mean, what is it?
Yeah.
Is it religion? And it really isn't.
let me demystify it.
Please do it because you know how to do it.
It's totally secular. It's an exercise for your brain. You don't have to join a group. You don't have to believe in anything. And you can do it even if you have a pre-existing set of religious beliefs. It would be like adding jogging onto your baptism. Or your Baptist faith. There's nothing spiritual, quote unquote, about it. At least in the early stages. If you want to get more serious, you could move into Buddhist or Vedic meditation. But like mindfulness meditation, the kind of meditation I teach, which has been studied in the labs extensively, is thoroughly secular. To your question about seeing how wild the mind is, Elvis Duran, your boss, I'm sad to say, was absolutely correct. When you see that your mind is wild, that is proof that you're doing it right, which is so liberating. It should be so liberating for people to hear this.
Explain that, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because I want my mind to calm, I don't want to go crazy.
See, you're thinking about it
It's
being
the-
calm, and
it's-
that's the beginning of it.
Yes, it's the wanting to achieve a certain outcome, that is the problem. In meditation, you're just learning to be cool with whatever's there. And the thoughts can come. The question isn't about changing the thoughts. The question is changing how you are with those thoughts.
So instead of thinking about it constantly, it would
Yes.
just come and go through like the feather and go out the other side.
Yes. You're seeing all of these crazy
Gotcha.
thoughts come. You're planning a homicide. You're wondering how successful Skiri's next weight gain project is going to be. Whatever it is, you're watching. Sorry, Skiri. You don't have a mic, so I feel comfortable teasing you.
There's a reason he has no mic.
Yeah. Okay. It's for everybody's protection, and including his own. So in meditation, you're sitting. Generally, you sit, close your eyes, try to focus on one thing. Usually, it's the feeling of your breath coming out, in and out. If the breath makes you anxious, that is true for some people. They want to focus on something else. It could just be the sensations of your body sitting. So you're sitting comfortably. You've chosen one thing to focus on. And the third and final, most important step is every time you get distracted, which will happen a million times, just start over. And you need, when people see how distractible they are, the voice in their head swoops in and tells them a whole story about how I, Danielle, am unfixable and can never meditate, et cetera, et cetera. But in fact, the moment you wake up from distraction and see how wild the mind is, that is success. You should say, great, pat yourself on the back, go back to the breath or whatever you're focusing on, and just do that over and over and over. That's like a bicep curl for your brain, and it changes the brain. This is what we see on the brain scans of meditators. And the benefit is, over time, the more familiar you get with how wild your mind is, the less owned you are by all of your crazy thoughts. And that is huge.
Gandhi,
Yes.
Gandhi's a meditator.
I am.
I don't know how many times. Do you do it a lot?
Yeah. I would say 5 times a week. It's important to me. I also think just if you can't settle your mind or you feel like you can't settle your mind, at least for me, I just focus on breathing. Because oxygen to the body and the brain makes such a difference for me, and I think for everybody. A lot of times when you find yourself panicking or in a tight situation and you just take a deep breath in the middle of that, you notice a difference. It resets you. So for me, meditating, sometimes when I'm having a tough time with it, I just focus on the breathing, and that's the easy way to go.
So you'll do deep breathing in that case. Yeah. So, I mean, this is beautiful. Absolutely. There's a ton of science to show that deep breathing, systematic deep breathing, can calm your nervous system. And I often start my meditation sessions with a couple of minutes of deep breathing, so I'm a little bit more chill, and then I start meditating. But there's still all these wild thoughts that come up, and that's not a problem. That is the practice. You're not trying to achieve some special state. And I think we've been ill-served by the fact that there have these Buddha statues outside of all of the airport spas, and he looks like he's, floating off into the cosmos and like bulletproof bliss. But that's not what the experience is. The experience is more like exercise, where you're being confronted with your neuroses and learning to ride them instead of being owned by them.
And even having done it as long as you have, do you have moments where you can't concentrate fully on meditating? Like your mind goes? Every
time I meditate, I've just dropped the expectation that I'm going to be able to concentrate. That's just not I've learned that the point is not to get somewhere. It's just to be with whatever's here right now, because that just teaches you how to move through life with some degree of calm, because there's so many things that happen in life that we can't control. I'm not saying anything new here, but how do you want to be with that stuff? Do you want to be resisting it, tight, grasping onto it, or do you want to be supple and responding wisely?
Yeah.
Here you are
looking at me skeptically.
It makes so much sense. It does.
It does, but it takes practice.
Yeah.
Here you are sitting in this room full of lights, full of blinking buttons, and you have calls coming in. You have a guest over here. You have us over here. Now you just think about your breathing for a second. Can you do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to laugh.
Okay, guess what? You're meditating. I mean, it's step one.
Yeah.
Just focus on that.
Does the app that you have help?
Yes, I think guided meditations absolutely help.
Yeah.
Because what you need to be is reminded that you're doing it right. You just need to hear somebody like me tell you over and over and over again, you're not screwing this up. You're good. Actually, I started a website, danharris.com, and there are a bunch of free meditations on there, so you don't have to pay anything. And there's a little quiz where you can find out what's the best meditation style for you. Oh. So my goal is just to make this as user-friendly as possible, to take away all your excuses, all your fears, and just help you do this thing, because it will help.
And it's not. I don't think it's something you can really fail at. Even
Correct.
if you don't make your 7 minutes or your 13 minutes, if you can do 4, Danielle, it's better than nothing.
Right.
And maybe the next day you do 5, the next day you do 6.
Right.
It is just like exercise. I think you shouldn't put so much pressure on yourself.
Could we
It'll be
agree
easier.
that Skiri could fail at it?
I actually, okay, of all of us in the room, I think Scary could be the most successful because he said he has no inner dialogue.
Yes,
When he's
yes.
not speaking,
You know
nothing
what?
is happening.
I believe that.
He
I
has
believe that.
zero.
Yeah.
He has
I mean, look at him.
Zero thought at all. By the way, if you're just turning us on, Dan Harris is here. We've been friends with him for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And of course, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of his best-selling book called 10% Happier, which is a fantastic read, by the way. What are you
Dan,
saying?
I think last time you were here, your kid was just born. How old now?
He's 9.
9. I know.
And I live with an
That's so-
insult comic. It's crazy. He is
That's crazy.
constantly. He
love
is
it.
constantly like he'll have some line criticizing me, and then he'll walk away and say savage.
What's up, Scary?
Real life scenario. You're at work. Someone says something that makes your blood boil because you met with adversity. How do you get in the moment and rein it in, like right there in that moment when you don't have time to go off on your own and meditate? Like, how do you get the process started in the middle of an argument and things are escalating?
Great question. I'm surprised it came from you.
Wow.
Savage.
It is eye-opening.
Wow.
Yeah, in the heat of if you're in the heat of the
Absolutely.
moment, there are ways to reel yourself back.
100%. But let's just say this. You know, if somebody mugs you on the street, you want to have done enough cardio in advance so that the running away from the mugger is easier to do. So daily practice arms you for life's inevitable ups and downs. Having said that, the way it works for me when I'm on my game, and I want to be clear, you know, I wrote a book called 10% Happier. I am not perfect. But when I'm on my game, I'm having a conversation, say on the rare occasion when Bianca says something provocative to me, I will notice, oh, I'm really feeling angry. I can feel it in my chest. My ears are buzzing. I'm having a starburst of like really uncool thoughts or ideas that I might articulate. And then I can just get curious about it. Like, what does this feel like? It's going to come and go. The half-life of anger, if you don't mess with it, is about a minute or 2. But we re-up it compulsively. We can make it last for days. And the difference between the amount of damage you can do in 2 days of anger versus 2 minutes is incalculable.
Wow.
And so
That's heavy.
it's about seeing what's happening, having enough self-awareness to see what's happening and let it go, and without acting on it, and so that you can respond wisely to things instead of reacting blindly. That's the key.
DanHarris.com, by the way, he said there are some guided meditations waiting for you, totally free, and a questionnaire. You can answer some questions, kind of figure out what path you may want to take. And you said there's an event or something? There was something else you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah, on March 28th.
March 28th.
If you guys want to come, I would love to have you. I'll only charge you the highest rate.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Right.
Lucky
That's so
us.
cool.
It's at Symphony Space in New York City. I'm gonna be doing a live version of my podcast where I'm gonna interview Joseph Goldstein and Mark Epstein, are 2 of the greatest meditation teachers alive right now in the West, and we're gonna have a band there, and it's gonna be a party.
A meditation band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just silent.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything. Exactly.
It's just gonna be interpretive dance of music you don't hear.
Of course, all the info's at danharris.com.
Yes, everything's there. Yes.
My favorite thing, my favorite story in 10% Happier, then we'll let you go. Hold on. Is when you actually went to a place and you had to be totally silent for how long?
10 days.
10 days. And to read your moment by moment account of this, basically, I got a little anxious.
Yeah.
Because you come from a world of words
Yeah.
and expressing and writing and painting pictures with words, and you had to go into a world of silence.
As silent as the inside of Scary's brain.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man, Scare. What'd you do to Dan?
I can't help it. It got me started, and then I just, you know.
So for 10 days, what did you get out of silence for 10 days?
Okay, so it's not really the silence that is. People always focus on the silence of a silent retreat. And that is scary in advance, but it's not the most prominent feature once you get there. The most prominent feature once you get there, the thing that really has your attention, is that you're expected to meditate from 5:30 in the morning all the way up until 10 o'clock at night. And it's just nonstop, you in your own experience, in your own mind, in a way that we never do this in our daily lives. And it's just it's an incredibly high dosage. And I found for the first 4 or 5 days that I was miserable. And on the 5th day, I was actually really ready to leave. I was pushing hard, trying hard. I was falling into the trap that we talked about earlier, Danielle, where I was wanting a certain experience. I wanted to feel calm, and I definitely did not feel calm. And on the 5th day, I went in and spoke to one of the teachers, and I was like, I got to go. I'm failing at this. And she said, no, you're just trying too hard. And it was like, whew, oh, that's right. I'm just trying too hard. So I went and did a meditation outside instead of being in the room with everybody else. And I just kind of relaxed, watched my breath. Every time I get distracted, start again, not complicated. And boom, I had an experience for 36 hours that was the happiest of my life, where the volume of mental chatter, all of my racing, neurotic thoughts, that volume went way down. And instead, I was really just in the present moment and hearing the birds and smelling my food and feeling my body move through space. And that was accompanied by just a huge blast of serotonin. It went away because everything changes all the time. But it gave me an enormous amount of faith that this practice is not hippie nonsense. It really is doing something, and that there are levels of our mind that we have access to levels of happiness that most of us don't normally achieve.
Well, we have to find them.
Wow.
You know, it's something as simple as walking down the street, being aware of things you pass. That's a form of meditation to me, rather than thinking, oh, my God, I have to get from point A to point B. I got to get there now because I'm late. Just, you know where you're going. You're going to get there physically. But just to look over at this flower over here. Oh, my God, there's a dog. And look at the dog. Look at the dog's ears. I mean, being aware of things that are around you at all times, that is a form of meditation. To me, it is.
1,000,000%. But what we're trying to do here is counter-program against our natural tendency, which is to walk around asleep. We are sleepwalking. We're stuck in this layer of story in our head, the thoughts about the past, thinking about the future. We're stuck by it in this nonstop conversation, which, if we broadcast aloud, you'd be locked up. We are living in this layer that is actually quite superficial, but there's so much more on offer that is just about tuning into the raw data of your senses. Oh, that's what that dog's ear looks like. That's what the air feels like on my face. This is what my legs feel like as I'm moving through space. You're systematically training your mind to wake up to the only time it ever is, which is right now. And it's a beautiful practice, just hard.
As they say, you got to live a dog's life. The dog is nowhere but in the present.
Yes.
A dog's not thinking about a moment ago and not thinking about the next moment. A dog is always thinking about that tree, that squirrel, you, that, oh my God, there's food on the ground. And that dog is living in that moment, and there's so much to learn from dogs. That's why we love them.
If you find yourself pooping on the rug, you should reconsider.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not good.
I wish you were here 10 minutes earlier. That's my next book, 10 minutes earlier. Things I could change in my life.
You'll be hearing from my lawyers.
So, okay, danharris.com, of course, the retreat. Learn about it. There's a band. Where's it? Symphony Space?
Symphony Space, March 28th. There's going to be a band. There's going to be great meditation teachers. There's going to be our first attempt at merch. We've got merch with words on it that I can't say on FCC-regulated radio.
Wow.
Thank you.
Right.
Yep. F it. Now, the podcast. People are texting in about the podcast, 10% Happier.
Yeah. That podcast, I started that about 8 or 9 years ago as a kind of afterthought after I wrote the book, and I thought it would be a cute little whatever. Elvis Duran came and graced me/us as one of our first guests, and it has totally swallowed my life. It has become the center of my professional life, and I've realized there's so many people listen to the show who don't even know I wrote a book that the show is based on.
Isn't that funny?
And we reach more people in a 4 to 6 week period than have ever read the book.
How many?
Every month.
Give me a number.
It's 800,000 people.
Hey!
Wow.
You should be on the Elvis Duran Podcast Network.
Wait,
Well, let's talk about it.
Can you get the book on Audible?
You can get the. I read it myself.
I like it
Yes.
because you have the neck nut. We have
Yes.
a lot of neck nuts people.
Yeah, you got
on
neck
today,
nuts.
you
Neck
know?
nut?
Yeah, neck
Yeah.
nuts when you have
Oh.
that
You have a low voice.
That voice.
Yes. Did you just see? I was just watching that Hugh Grant neck nut bit from SNL. Did you ever see that?
No.
Can I talk about this?
Nuts?
Yeah, can you talk about nuts?
As in almonds and pistachios?
Well, I don't want to get in trouble.
Nuts. With that said, Dan Harris.
Danielle took us into dangerous
I know.
territory.
DanHarris.com to learn everything. And of course, 10% Happier is the podcast. But the book that started it all with us anyway, the 10th anniversary, congratulations for 10% Happier. Dan Harris, love him.
You.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.